Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builders Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the Deltana number FRP175. This is a flush ring pull is what they call these, and the flush ring pull is a really neat hardware item. I couldn't guess as to how many decades this piece of equipment's existed. This is very likely most definitely 19th century technology in terms of its design. Used obviously in instances where you need to pull something open but you don't want any projecting hardware. A common application would just simply be a door that you can't suffer anything hanging off the door. Maybe these doors swing open and will hit a wall. You need it to open all the way to 90 degrees and there can be nothing projecting off of here. A concealed edge pull, a scissors pull, or a knife pull, or just an edge pull that's mortised to the edge of the door is not what the client wants. This similar concept is used in squash courts. You'll have a door, and the operating hardware on the door is perfectly flush because you're, playing, squash is the bottom line. And you'll see this concept used in that application, obviously in furniture or door applications like this. This is probably some sort of a furniture type application is where this would be used. I have had people ask me if that is something that can be installed flat and then use this to lift something up, and my answer is I can't really attest to how strong the pin is that's holding the ring to the cast housing. But I've seen it installed countless times. I mean, I've seen that application installed lots of times. Sewing machine, benches, they very, very often, will have a lift up like that so that something can fold back. And you'll see that in, china cabinets and, other custom furniture applications. So very typical and common. These are available in different sizes and different finishes. Let's talk about this one first. They have this at 1 3/4, that would be the height. They also have it at 1 3/8. Okay. Let's take a couple of other dimensions because we can. The thickness of the material, of the lip, is about 0.1 inch, right on the nose, as a matter of fact, 0.1. So the question becomes how would you go about installing this? Let's talk about that now. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. The methodology that you would use to go about installing this is really going to be dependent, I think, on, how many do you have to do? Do you have one or do you have 100? What tools do you have available to you? What is your skill set? Are you able to make a template, or is a hammer and chisel the extent of it? And all of that would come together. If I was doing just one, I would, very likely use a hammer and chisel if I was doing one, and I didn't have any other tools for doing it. If I was doing more than one, I would probably make a template that I could clamp to my workpiece and then use a router with a very small diameter router bit and get me as close as possible to tracing all of this out. Okay, is likely what I would do. And then I would get in with the hammer and chisel and square out those corners. You'll note that your screw hole is really close to this feature that you're going to have to accommodate. So you're going to need to be sure that if you build a template that you're just going to be missing literally what would be the D1 and the D2 area to make it curved like that. If you were going to think of it in terms of AutoCAD, I suppose. It's normal when you're fitting hardware that you have to clean up a little bit of it when you're mortising for hardware with a hammer and chisel or some tool. If you have lots of tools available to you, I'm a fan of Forstner bits. I would probably use a Forstner bit to create this hole here, and I might hammer and chisel the balance of it. But if I was going to do any sort of quantity, I would be absolutely using a router. I would build myself a template. My template would have a profile of what I wanted to mortise, less the half of the diameter of, or the diameter of the guide that's going to be inside the template. And I would clamp that down, and that's how I would go about doing it, all the way up to CNC work. If you have a CNC computer numerically controlled machine. Doing that would take probably an hour or 2 hours of testing and you know, program creation and testing. But at that point, you could run these ad infinitum. So hammer and chisel, Forstner bit, hammer and chisel, router, you know, however you're going to go about doing it. I'm a fan of a router in all instances because it will always give you the cleanest cut on your flat sides. The issue is you'll still have to go back and square out those corners when using a router. So it depends on, you know, how many you got and what tools you already own, things of that nature. Screws are included. Now these screws, I'm going to say that these are not steel. They're certainly not brass because they're marginally magnetic. Marginally magnetic is a hallmark of stainless steel. These may be brass-plated stainless screws. You know, if they were solid brass, there would be zero magnetism. If they were steel, there would be extreme magnetism. So they're some material that we're guessing at. The point of pointing that out, the reason to point that out, is because you need to be sure that you're properly pre-drilling the holes for the material, because you don't want to force that screw in, strip out the heads, or worse, shear the screw. So be mindful to have a proper pre-drill size when you're doing it. You're going to want to, in my opinion, use a wire size drill index so that you can get the most accurate size. Depending on what you're drilling into, either hardwood or softwood, you'll want to use maybe 80% the diameter of the root of the screw for hardwoods. Pardon me. Yeah, I would say about 80%. There's guidelines, and I'm not an expert when it comes to this. If it's a softwood, you'd go with a slightly smaller hole. You know, like maybe 85% for hardwood and 80% for softwoods, or something in that range. I was always taught that the size of the hole that you drill is the body diameter, the root diameter of the screw. But in recent years, I've heard you know, a percentage of that, a multiplier of that diameter, slightly smaller, and then accounting for what you're installing it into. Overthinking it, if you're putting one of these, yeah, possibly. Just don't strip or destroy the screw when you're putting it in. Assume it's brass is the bottom line, and you probably won't strip it out. Now, let's switch to the screen view. Let's take a closer look at some supporting information. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Here is the item that we are looking at, a nice factory image here. And we have a cut sheet that's linked here. Let's take a closer look at that. So that's a technical drawing of what you're dealing with. No real guidance as to what needs to be done for pre-drilling, for fitting, etc. These dimensions do match up basically with what we have in front of us within reason. A lot of people will request the hardware in hand before they mortise for something. And, you know, there's two schools of thought on that. At least in my own mind, I've prepped countless, thousands of doors without the hardware being present. And it's because I have a template, I know what the manufacturer declares for its size, and I machine accordingly. The second school of thought that I have is no hardware, when you put a caliper on it, is going to be 1.3750000 or 1.75000 to infinity. No hardware. Prepping for stuff, using your experience and knowledge and the wisdom that you gain by actually mortising doors and frames for hardware, and knowing the manufacturer as well, will give you better guidance as to how to proceed accordingly. If I was going to make a template and run 1,000 of these or 100 of these, I would want the hardware in my hand, because I would go to the lengths of making that hardware fit as perfectly as possible. This is a cast product that, you know, is not necessarily the highest precision method of manufacturing. When I put my caliper on the width of this, which I'm doing right now, the width of this is 1.393. 1.393. So that is marginally greater than 1.375. I personally wouldn't want to struggle with that 64th of an inch trying to fit it in there. So I would like the hardware in my hand. But you know, you've got the information that the manufacturer declares, and that first school of thought is prep it. You know what size, it's right here. Although again, you don't have enough information based on this to actually machine that, because you need to do a little doodad like that, right? Anyway, if you have any questions on how to mortise this once you get the hardware from us, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to expand on this. There's a link below the video here to the manufacturer's page, and from here we can pull up not only all of the Deltana products that we sell by means of this horizontal navigation, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the most current full product catalog. Let's wrap up this video on camera. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Before we move to the final portion of this video, let's just take a look at the images that are uploaded here below. There's the unit in the packaging, the unit itself. Telltale signs that it's made of solid brass, just the hue of the base material. Just a side view, showing that flush ring pulled up. The backside, you can see what your challenge is. Pretty close to the screw holes there, so you're going to want to be careful how you do that. And then the screw package. Okay, let's move on. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. The name Deltana is synonymous with imported, generally brass, trim and auxiliary hardware, a variety of different items. They get into hardware that has become over the last 20 years more difficult to source as well. They generally have one of two things when it comes to inventory: either a ton of it, or they're out of stock for 12 weeks. And generally when they're out of stock, it's because they've had an order come in that way exceeds their sales history, brought them to zero. Now they're waiting for the material to come back in stock from overseas. Good quality people over there on the telephone, knowledgeable, helpful, generally a well-organized outfit, and to them for that I say thank you. Any questions on the flush ring pull? Oh, different sizes. I'm sorry, I do want to tell you about different sizes. FRP175, yeah, they do make these, and these are available in different sizes to be sure. FRP175, okay. Deltana has two options: 1 3/4 by 1 3/8, 2.5 by 1 7/8. The larger size is the FRP25. Okay, that's the other size that's available to you. Any questions on this or any other Deltana product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up. Please subscribe and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.